A massive new security bill is winding its way through Parliament that would make historic changes to Canada's ability to stop foreign hackers. It would allow the Communications Security Establishment, CSE, or Canada's version of the NSA, to launch defensive and offensive operations against cyber attackers to protect our democracy and stop attacks like what happened in the last U.S. election. Our election campaign is already well underway, but the new security bill's not ready, and I've been told the big political parties are easy targets. A former high-ranking senior intelligence official tells The Weekly that political parties are the most vulnerable when it comes to cyber attacks. The Liberals, the Conservatives, the NDP, and even the Greens, they have enormous amounts of personal information on file. Your personal data, my data, and all this data could be grabbed by hackers wanting to mess with our democracy. A campaigner for one of the big parties in the last federal election, basically a last-minute volunteer, told us they were given an app that gave them access to voter registration information, all of it accessible by a single password. We asked the parties if they have improved their password protection since then, but none of them got back to us. When Russian intelligence officers hacked the Democrats' emails and helped Trump win, it all started with one stolen password.
The defendants used two techniques to steal information. First, they used a scheme known as spear phishing, which involves sending misleading email messages and tricking the users into disclosing their passwords and security information.
Essentially, Hillary Clinton's campaign chair, John Podesta, fell for a classic reset your password email. Once in, the hackers had access to tens of thousands of emails. Then they hacked the DNC server and planted malware, a software bug that allowed them to spy on users and harvest everything from opposition research to a folder about the Benghazi investigation. All of it was then made public through WikiLeaks and ended up doing a lot of damage to the Clinton campaign. But it wasn't just the parties they hacked.
Russian GRU officers hacked the website of a state election board and stole information about 500,000 voters. They also hacked into computers of a company that supplied software used to verify voter registration information.
The United States is now taking action. They've launched a new cybersecurity strategy, allowing them to hack back when they're being attacked. Canada's new bill would give our security agencies similar powers, but it's not even close to being ready. It's stuck in the Senate, likely until the end of June. Joining me now is someone who knows a lot about these kinds of threats. Leon Panetta was Bill Clinton's chief of staff. He was also a defense secretary and the director of the CIA under President Obama. Now he's chairman of the Panetta Institute for Public Policy, and he joins me from Monterey, California. So I'm sure you've heard, we have an election coming here in the fall, and I've been told by a high-ranking former intelligence security official here that our big parties are open targets here in terms of their data. If that's true, how worrisome is that?
It's very worrisome. We saw what happened in 2016, and the testimony that was provided by intelligence officials just this last week makes very clear that both Russia and China are focusing on the 2020 election. So we're very concerned that they're going to continue to try to disrupt our election process.
So there is a new security bill in the works here, somewhat like the one that you have in the United States, but it has to work its way through the Senate, and we're told that it probably won't be ready until June, just a couple of months before the election. How big a deal is that?
Well, it should be of great concern to the Canadian voters, because the fact is that steps need to be taken now to try to deal with those that are trying to disrupt an election. And that takes a lot of work to determine just exactly what elements of the web, of the internet are being exploited. What are their tactics? What are they trying to do in terms of impacting on the voters? And then what steps need to be taken in order to make sure that doesn't happen? If you're going to wait for legislation, it may very well be too late.
So what kind of harm are we actually talking about here? If a foreign hacker, a foreign state, is able to get its hands on the databases of Canada's political parties in the middle of an election campaign?
They will go after material that normally is confidential within a party, and then use that material to go after that particular party. And they use it then to influence voters. And they have voter lists. They know from the information that's available now through Facebook and all the other various sites that are on the internet, they can then target voters with that information and influence the way they vote.
How afraid should Canadians be?
Canadians ought to be concerned about this. There are countries like Russia and China and Iran and others that are going to try to impact and influence the election in Canada. The voters need to be aware of that. They need to understand the kind of tactics that may be used. And the Canadian government has to be prepared to try to shut down those sites that they identify as having been influenced by foreign powers.
Canada has for so long had this reputation as sort of like the nice middleman on the global scene, but now this legislation would allow Canada to hack back against a cyber attack. It's pretty controversial, but what do you think? I mean, is it time for Canada to change?
The reality is we are in a different era now, where we're dealing with what is called cyber warfare. And enemies are going to use cyber not only to go after our election systems, but they could use cyber to try to cripple our countries. This is the equivalent of an attack on our country. And I think Canada, recognizing that and trying to protect its own national security, has to take steps to make sure that they protect the integrity of their election system and that they protect their country. I'm confident Canada will do that.
It's been wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Leon Panetta is former director of the CIA, a former defense secretary, and former chief of staff at the White House. So, concerned yet? Here's more on how all of this could possibly play out. It always comes down to data. The Watergate burglars were looking for their opposition's secrets in a file cabinet. Now those secrets are on a computer, vulnerable to cyber attack. So what do they want and how do they get it? Here are a few examples the Canadian Security Establishment, or CSE, is worried could happen here. In June 2016, during the presidential election, Arizona was forced to shut down its voter registration system for nearly a week after attackers attempted to penetrate its computer systems with an email designed to look legitimate. It didn't work, but it raised some big questions. Once you get access to a voter database, you can use it to influence and even suppress the vote. Anything from sending voters to the wrong polling stations, ring any bells, to targeting them through a massive social media campaign. Russian troll farms, anyone? Then there's actual vote tampering. In the Netherlands, officials were forced to count all the votes by hand in the last election over fears of Russian interference with vote tabulation machines. And in December 2016, cyber attackers broke into Ghana's election commission. As the votes were being counted, fake results were actually tweeted out on election night. Imagine. So, what's the end game? According to the CSE, short term, they can help a party win or lose an election. Longer term, the attacks can weaken leaders that pose a threat to other nation states. Experts tell us China or Russia are the obvious suspects. Canada's cyber spies are preparing for the worst, saying, "We judge that almost certainly multiple hacktivist groups will deploy cyber capabilities in an attempt to influence the democratic process in 2019. So we know the Canadian bill to try and tackle these threats is currently making its way through the Senate, but we're told it won't be ready until the end of June, and that's only a few months before the election. Joining me now from Montreal is Mark Gold. He's the independent senator who's sponsoring the new security bill through the Senate. So, Senator, I'm told that it could be very easy to hack into the big party's database. Is that something that concerns you?
Absolutely, Wendy. And here's where C-59 will provide very significant additional protection. So, for example, If a foreign actor seeks to penetrate a political party's database for the purposes of exploiting the information there or targeting its voters one way or the other, CSE, when C-59 is enacted, at the request of the political party who's being attacked, could go, using its technological ability, and not only defend against those attempts to penetrate the system, but could actually go into the internet and, with the technical ability they have, to disable that foreign computer, that foreign server or set of servers that's doing the attack. If, for example, it arises that the foreign actor has already grabbed some of the data and imported it into their server, again, with the active and defensive cyber mandate that C-59 would give, CSE could go out and either reclaim the data, pull it off that foreign server, or encrypt it so it couldn't be used, or change it so that it could not be used in an effective way.
C-59 would change CSE, the cyber spies, it would change their mandate to allow them to carry out activities on or through the global information infrastructure to degrade, disrupt, influence, respond to, or interfere with the capabilities, intentions, activities of a foreign individual, state, organization, or terrorist group. So degrade, disrupt, influence, respond to, interfere with. What exactly are we talking about? We're talking about hacking back. We're talking about going on the offensive, right?
Well, in some cases, yes. And we are certainly talking about hacking back. We're talking about using our capacity. In some cases, it might be to send a worm or a virus through the internet to attack the server that is poised to attack us. This is a new territory for the CSE and potentially very, very controversial. Bill C-59 surrounds the exercise of this power with very clear political checks and balances, requiring a number of ministerial sign-offs.
But it is a whole new world, right? It really is. It could be a slippery slope. We've never done that, or at least not that we're aware of.
These are powers that will be used when there's no other alternative to stop the threat.
And is that what you have to do in this day and age? Is that where we've come?
Well, yes. I mean, the short answer is this is a brave new world that's been thrust upon us by the digital revolution.